happens in real time. How do we help students learn within that?
What stories do they have to share? And are there...
I need to understand, they can't get food.
Fourthly, they need to foster a healthy disregard for the impossible.
Have y'all ever realized
Just to give you a little bit of background before we jump into a presentation. So my name is Jeremy Kane, and I run a group of 3 public charter schools here in town. We've just been approved to do 2 more. And just to give you the background as we get into the presentation, will hopefully help provide a little bit more background and a little bit more thought behind it. We are currently serving 650 students at 3 campuses. At full growth, we'll serve 4,700 students in Nashville across 5 schools. Our schools right now are 90% minority, 95% free and reduced lunch. Most of that is free, meaning that our students get their 2 meals, typically a day, at our schools. And so what I wanted to do today was talk a little bit about how we approach education. As a public charter school, we're free to do things a little bit differently than traditional public education, so I'll make that distinction there. And in fact, I was hopeful that some of our students could be here, but they're actually out doing some service learning projects today that I'll talk about a little bit later. So part of it was I want to talk about how we believe we're changing education, how we believe our students are leading that change. So right now, I actually put this presentation together with some of our 10th graders and 9th graders. So if there's any mistakes, I'll take the blame. But they're very excited to hear how this comes out. So last month was our service learning month, where we really focused our middle schools and our high schools on designing our service projects for the year. And so part of this was we started with a question and sort of an unanswerable question. So up here, I have 2 numbers. And I'll give a prize if anybody can guess the 2 numbers. Okay, I don't have that long, so I'll keep moving. The top number there is 585,000. 585,000. That is the number of cancer deaths in the U.S. every year. The bottom is 1.2 million. That's the number of U.S. dropouts. So what might you ask, do those have in common? Wrong way. So how many people have seen this symbol? Pretty much everybody. Okay? You've probably seen it on the NFL, October, the pink month, right? We're talking about cancer awareness, breast cancer awareness. So part of those numbers, the top, the 1.2 million, most of our students, that 1.2 million, 40% of those would be minority. Over in Nashville, this year, there's over 700 students that will drop out of public education this year alone. Most of those look like our students, go to the schools that our students come from. So again, why are we talking about cancer when we're doing that? What is the title of the presentation, The Power of Pink? What can we learn from that? Well, I'm not sure how much you know, as we got into the month of September, so our students started investigating this. They're looking this year at this idea of justice. What is justice? So at the beginning, most of our students started looking at crime, looking at education. All of a sudden, we got into this and started becoming aware that October was Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And they found, doing some research, I'm not sure how much you can see in the upper, here, the corner over here. It's one of the signs that they did out of their research and started putting up around the community. So our high schools in downtown North Nashville, one of the highest, or lowest rather, highest poverty census tracts in the entire state we have. So up at the top there, what did we learn? The first thing here is it's very personal to us. If you see in the bottom there, the mortality rate, 3 in 100, that you actually see African Americans have the highest death rate. So as our students looked at that and got into this data, they started seeing that it was actually personal to them, that it was someone in their family, someone their grandmother, their grandfather, someone in their extended family, that all of a sudden cancer was very real to them. And so what can we learn from that? So the Susan G. Komen Cancer Center grew out of, how many people know about the history of this? So Nancy Brinker, her sister, Susan G. Komen's sister, passed away and from breast cancer, and as she was dying, she asked her sister to pick up her cause and take it out to the world. This was in 1982. So 1982 to going forward now, we have the pink ribbon, we now have NFL players wearing pink, we have a month. This all grew out of something that was personal to them. So how does this connect to our kids? You can see two great kids there that started with us that are now in the 8th grade. They decided to design t-shirts. And so on the front there is the LEAD logo, and on the back is our ethos, I lead because. And so what they did was they sold this in their community, started raising funds for the Susan G. Komen Center. And so what that was not enough for them is they looked at it and they said, we need to take the power of this and start bringing it to the community. And so they organized a group of 8th grade students with the help of our high schoolers. They started looking around and realized that the rate for African Americans of actually getting mammograms was incredibly low, drastically low. One of the things was about the personal nature of this. Part of what we see in October and Breast Cancer Awareness Month and making it personal is that sometimes these tests are very invasive. Sometimes they require a very personal conversation with your doctor. There's a stigma to it, especially in the African American community, especially in the low-income community where you can't even get access to health care. And so what they did was they called around and found that there's actually a mobile women's health clinic that can come around Nashville, and they will actually do mammograms. And so led by our students, they went out and knocked on doors. They were the ones that were working with the teachers. And first year, I'm very, very proud of them. They were able to get over 50 free mammograms just in North Nashville for their friends and their neighbors. So learning from that, what is the power of pink? The power of pink is a group of 8th graders recognizing something that was personal to them and something to be able to do something about that. The other thing that we can learn as our students study this, and part of this discussion comes out of a debriefing session we did with all of our students at the end of these projects. And so these two lessons, one is we have to make it personal, and the other is we have to engage others in the storytelling of our ideas. I love the two previous presentations. So it was a lot about that experiential and that conversation that happens. So what happened when Nancy Brinker started this conversation? It started slowly, built over time. It took her 25 years until we get a month, until we have the pink ribbon, until it goes. Our kids recognize that, but part of it was they're bringing their message out to the public and they're sharing those ideas. So just very briefly in conclusion here, the top left corner there is a group of our high school students. This was another project that they did. These are a group of artists from our art program, and this is getting prepared for their first art session. So they have researched Salvador Dali. They looked at it through the historical lens. They wrote essays on it and then created the artwork and then presented it in Hillsborough Village and worked with that. The bottom corner here is actually in a partnership with some USN students through Glenn Levin and the Capitol Grill downtown. Is they recognize in their community another thing just like the cancer is that they're living in food deserts. And I know one of the conversations today is about the food deserts. So they've actually started a business, a group of high school students, to be able to use these vegetables that they've grown at Glenlevin Farm, be able to go back in their community and sell it to their friends and their neighbors so they have fresh fruits and vegetables. Lower right corner here is at Room in the Inn. Again, homelessness. We have over 40 kids at our high school of 150 kids right now who are homeless, who are jumping from bed to bed to bed to bed. So they know Room in the Inn, they know where it's at, so they're down there, again, carrying that message, carrying that story, and making those connections out there. The last two, there in the middle there is our art program. A lot of our kids looked at it. Graffiti is in litter or typical of urban areas, especially the homes where our kids come from. They were looking at it, and one of their ideas was we actually want to own the space and feel responsibility for the space. And so this is within our high school, and then in the exterior of it as well, is actually painting it and claiming it as their own, but doing it in an artistic and artful way. The last one is at Vanderbilt. 95% of our kids will be first generation college bound. 100% when they graduate from a four-year college will be the first college graduate in their family. So what is the power of pink? The power of pink is how do we take a message? How do we take a personal occurrence? How do we take something that's personal for us like Nancy Brinker did, carry that out to the community, get people engaged in our conversation, and to carry that message forward. With our kids, as they tell me, it's all about the personal, it's always about the storytelling. So I'd ask you today, in a day where we're here to talk about ideas, what is your pink? How are you going to get people to hear your message, to make it personal, but also to tell that story? Thank you very much.